Hello, welcome back to Uncut and welcome back to another series review. Today we have season 2 of Stranger Things. We're reviewing season 2 because that's what the Duffer Brothers recommended before we watch season 5. If you did not watch our season 1 review, make sure to go to our channel or to a link in the description to take a look. Without further ado, here's season 2.
Chapter 1 Mad Max. We see a new group of characters escaping out of an apartment building into a waiting van and dash off, getting chased by police. We focus on one girl in the passenger seat who was directing the driver. We see her seemingly using powers to cause a section of tunnel collapse onto the police cars. We realize the tunnel didn't actually collapse, that it was in the policeman's head. We see blood begin to fall down the girl's nose, and she has a number 8 tattoo on her wrist. We know immediately she's like 11. It's been almost a year since the events of last season. The gang are back together, heading to an arcade for a night of fun. They realize someone beat Dustin's high score on several games, going by Mad Max. They want to find out who beat the high score. While at the arcade, we see Will having a vision of the Upside Down, and he sees a storm brewing in the distance with an eerie roar emitting from it. He tries to move past this vision. A new character named Murray comes down to Hawkins police station, seemingly investigating the presence of Russian spies, specifically a child seen around Hawkins. Hopper is dismissive, but it's clear Murray is bringing up 11. We meet another batch of new characters, an older gruff-looking guy with a mullet and a younger red-haired girl who heads towards the middle school. The girl is introduced as new student Maxine, although she prefers Max. The gang immediately thinks she's Mad Max from the arcade and begin semi-stalking her. Yet another new character goes to Joyce's job. His name is Bob, and he seems like a sweet guy, but clearly Joyce's new boyfriend as they sneak to the back to make out. They used to go to high school together and reunited this past year. Hopper gets called down to a pumpkin patch as all of the crops have rotted overnight. The farmer believes a rival farmer poisoned his field. What might at first seem insignificant becomes a major plot point for the rest of the season. Nancy and Steve are still an item at the start of this season, and she has an easy back and forth with Jonathan. It's clear they have great chemistry as she insists he attend a Halloween party. Will is getting bullied by other students at school, referring to him as Zombie Boy. He gets stares as he walks down the hall. It doesn't help that he gets pulled out of school on a regular basis to go to the lab. It seems leadership at the lab has been replaced from last season. Dr. Sam Owens is now a main figure at the lab. He is Will's doctor, it seems, going over the visions Will gets into the Upside Down and monitoring for any new side effects from his time trapped there. Dr. Owens says that with the 1-year anniversary coming up, the visions could get worse before they get better. Later that night, Steve and Nancy go to Barb's house for a regular dinner with Barb's parents. The parents reveal they are selling the house as they hired a man named Murray, who they identify as a former investigative journalist. They hired him to find Barb and fully investigate her disappearance, leaving no stone unturned. This upsets Nancy as she already knows Barb is dead, yet can't tell them due to the deal she made with the lab to keep quiet. The lab at the same time is working to destroy the gate and its progression on the walls and floor. They burn it with fire, which seems to be its weakness. We see, though, that not everything is fine at the lab as major alarms get triggered. Will, after going to bed, wakes up and experiences one more vision, one where he sees a gigantic monster looming ahead. We get the biggest shock of all in the last scene of this episode. Hopper goes to a remote cabin in the middle of the woods. We realize he has been housing Elle, that he has a father-daughter type dynamic with her now, and her hair is growing out. We couldn't be more excited to see her, getting confirmation she is alive and well. Chapter 2 Trick or Treat, Freak. We go back in time to the events of the last episode of Season 1 to see how Elle survived. She got sent to the Upside Down with the Demogorgon not in sight. She's trapped in the Upside Down's version of the middle school when she finds the gate the Demogorgon ripped open. She waits till the coast is clear and pushes her way back into the real world. Elle immediately goes searching for Mike, traveling to his house. We see government officials in Mike's house, searching it and speaking to all members of the family, making it clear Elle is dangerous, and should she make an appearance, they need to be notified and apprehend her immediately. Elle decides to hide in the woods, knowing Mike's house is no longer safe. Now a year later, Elle is wanting to get out of hiding and try to go trick-or-treating dressed as a sheet ghost. Hopper doesn't think it is safe and insists she stay home. He does feel bad, so he offers to buy candy and watch a scary movie with her that night as a compromise. The whole gang are dressed up for Halloween, dressed up as Ghostbusters. We get a fun montage of every family taking photos of their boys. We also see Lucas's family, meeting his little sister Erica, who becomes an important character later on. The gang are all a little mortified when they realize no one else at the school is dressed up. Lucas and Dustin take their obsession with Max a step further, planning out when and how to speak to her. It's unclear if it's infatuation or admiration at this point. They finally get the courage to talk to her and invite her to go trick-or-treating with them. Max leaves, not giving them an answer. When Billy picks her up, we see how Billy is mean to her and a reckless driver. He's easily angered, yelling in Max's face. He almost runs over Dustin, Lucas, and Mike just to make Max upset. The gate and the Upside Down are changing. The lab continues their study of it, now being able to go in and out and set up a satellite signal there. Dr. Owens rewatches Will's testimony of his visions, giving us an idea that he believes a development is being made. Nancy is getting more distressed dealing with her grief over Barb and not being able to tell Barb's parents the truth. Steve reasons with her and tries to get her to pretend to be like stupid teenagers for the time being, as they could get arrested or worse for revealing the truth. As Elle goes stir-crazy in the cabin, we get more flashbacks to last year and her time living in and surviving in the woods. She notably attacked a man in order to steal his winter coat and hat. Hopper arrives at the station for the day with another farmer claiming his pumpkins were poisoned. Perhaps each farmer poisoned each other's farms. Hopper pays the farm a visit, but sees slime at the scene as well, coating trees. He takes this seriously, wanting his other cops to mark how far the rot goes on each field that's been hit. It takes him all night, which causes Hopper to accidentally miss his plans he had made with Elle. It's Halloween night, and the high school party is underway with plenty of alcohol, kissing, and dancing. Nancy decides to take part in the drinking, going overboard, justifying it by using Steve's previous request to just be stupid teenagers against him. Jonathan arrives at the party, following through with Nancy's request. Nancy is more drunk and out of control, accidentally spilling a drink on herself. Steve tries to talk to her, apologize, and take her home. Nancy tells him that Steve is bullshit, and her loving him is bullshit. Steve realizes that she's confessing that she doesn't love him. He leaves, clearly upset. Jonathan is the one who has to take Nancy home. It's time for the gang to go trick-or-treating, and Max decides to scare them with a Jason mask. Lucas, Dustin, and Will are all surprised she wants to trick-or-treat with them, but Mike is visibly upset she's there. Will gets targeted by 3 older kids who call him Zombie Boy, causing him to fall backwards and have another vision. This time, the monster has moved closer, almost directly in front of him. He runs, terrified for his life, when Mike successfully snaps him out of it. Will confesses his visions to Mike and explains as best as he can what is happening inside of his head. They really bond in that moment. It's clear they are learning to rely on each other instead of relying on Dustin and Lucas, who have become their own trio with Max. Hopper finally gets home, but Elle won't talk to him, locking herself in her room. She uses this alone time to try to see Mike, using the white noise of the TV to reach out to him. This is definitely a sign that her powers are becoming more refined and adapting to her new environment. As Dustin returns home from trick-or-treating, he sees something in the trash can that both scares him and shocks him. Chapter 3. The Pollywog. Dustin adopts a little creature he found which resembles a tadpole slug thing. Dustin is able to feed it nougat chocolate and figures out it doesn't like the heat. He names his creature Dart for short, but we begin getting the idea that Dart might not be as cute as we thought, as it growls like another monster we've heard before, but we'll get to that soon. Dustin begins researching what species he is. Hopper and Elle have lived with each other long enough that he knows Elle visited Mike last night. He promises her that she will be able to see him soon, that he is making progress. He wants her to wait till it's safe, but Elle believes he's lying, that he keeps saying soon she can see him, but it's never an exact day. She lashes out as a result. Bob and Joyce's relationship is getting more serious. He offers Joyce and her sons to move to Maine with him, and now he's sleeping over. He offers to drive Will to school that day, giving him some good advice on how to deal with the visions that scare him. Tells him to stand his ground against the monster. Will likes the idea and is willing to try it. Max is starting to ask more questions about the gang, why people treat Will differently, and what possibly happened last year. Lucas does his best to tell her the public version of the story. Hopper arrives at work that day and uses a map to track the rot. He realizes the rot encircles the area surrounding the lab. He goes there himself to try to warn Dr. Owens, who doesn't believe the rot has anything to do with him or the lab. He says they've been doing burns and have the gate in control. Hopper demands Dr. Owens convince him to go to the fields that were affected and study if the decay is in fact from the lab. We get another flashback to Elle. She knows Hopper has been leaving food for her, so she reveals herself to him. We see how Hopper moved her into the cabin, working together to clear up the mess, set it up with a tripwire and a special knocking and radio system for safety. She really grows to trust him and open up to him as time goes on. 11 in the present disregards Hopper's rules of safety. and leaves the cabin on her own for the first time. She's off to see Mike. We also see Elle grappling with what Hopper told her about her mother. She's beginning to want to know more about her and be able to have a mother figure in her life. Nancy goes to talk to Steve, initially angry he didn't pick her up for school. He tells her exactly what she said last night and demands to know if she does actually love him or not. She notably can't answer him. He calls Jonathan her other boyfriend and says she's the one who's bullshit. Jonathan confirms Steve's recollection of the events from the party, confirming he took her home. Nancy begins to wonder if maybe she had been telling the truth, that she doesn't love Steve, and that she is more broken up about Barb than she thought. She begins to formulate a plan. Jonathan and Nancy call Barb's mom, asking to speak to her at a specific location. Dustin gets the gang and Max together to show them Dart. The group initially believes he is a pollywog. As Will continues to observe him and his behavior, he begins to believe Dart is actually a creature from the Upside Down. Mike stops them from showing the creature to Mr. Clark, explaining Will's concerns about Dart. Mike theorizes Will's visions are true sight, and that he actually sees into the Upside Down instead of just one-off visions. They don't fill Max in on the meeting, but Dart escapes their grasp. The gang all search the school. As they search, Elle shows up at the school, witnessing Mike and Max talking to each other in the school gym. While she can't hear the conversation, she assumes Mike likes Max and leaves instead of confronting him. Mike and Will want to kill the creature, but Dustin insists Dart is harmless and finds a way to keep him and hide him from the gang. Joyce is instructed to watch video footage Will had recorded on Halloween when he experienced a vision. She realizes the camera captured the outline of the monster Will had drawn in the previous episode. She races to the school to talk to Will. At the same time, Will has another episode in the Upside Down. Will stands his ground, yelling for the monster to go away, when suddenly it approaches in a windstorm and violently enters his body, through his eyes, mouth, nose, everywhere. Chapter 4. Will the Wise. Joyce arrives at the school to chaos. Will appears maybe to be having a seizure of sorts, but he's standing up straight up and not moving. In the Upside Down, we can see the monster possessing him, still entering his body. When Will wakes up, his mom wants to know what happened, but Will instinctively wants to lie and tell her he doesn't remember. She finally confronts him with the drawing and seeing the monster on tape. He finally cracks, crying and opening up to her about what happened and about the monster. Hopper comes home angry that night after receiving a phone call from a concerned mother seeing Elle in her backyard. He's angry yet also scared, wanting to know if anyone else saw her and wants her to understand she put them in danger by leaving. A yelling match ensues between them. Hopper grounds her. Elle says her famous "You are like Papa" line, and she completely loses it, smashing every window in the cabin. That next morning, Joyce insists Will stays home from school, as he doesn't feel well and his body temperature is pretty low. She tries to run him a hot bath. Will says ominously he likes it cold and insists he can't go in the bath. Joyce brings Hopper over to try to gauge this new development, especially since Will doesn't want to see his doctor. Will reveals he's experiencing what he calls now memories from the monster. Words won't accurately explain it, but he draws what he sees instead. Joyce realizes the strange drawings all connect to each other and form a network. Looking at it all together, Hopper realizes he's been drawing vines and races to the fields. In this episode, we see more tension between Steve and Billy, as it's clear Billy is aggressive and performs well on the basketball team. This tension still seems relatively one-sided, with Billy trying to get a rise out of Steve. Nancy and Jonathan meet up to begin the plan. They go to a local playground and observe the people around them. They realize government officials from the lab in plain clothes have them surrounded. They are forcibly taken to the lab as a result. Dr. Owens is there to greet them, take them on a tour of the developments they've made, and tell them that he is on their side, that the previous lab administration who caused harm and tried covering it up is gone. Dr. Owens insists he and the lab are on their side and to not reveal the truth to others. As they drive away, Nancy pulls out a tape recorder from her bag. We realize Nancy and Jonathan wanted to get caught by the lab and record a confession that confirms the lab was responsible for Barb's death. At school, Max realizes Mike and the others keep keeping secrets from her and not including her. She's greatly offended, having believed they genuinely wanted her in the party. Lucas tries to formulate a plan to get her to understand. Billy sees Max and Lucas's fight, and he demands she stays away from him, possibly due to racism. Elle cleans and explores the cabin while Hopper is out of the house. She stumbles upon files in the crawlspace about her mother. She realizes her mother is still out there, despite Hopper saying her mother is gone. She tries to reach her via radio waves, but it's unsuccessful. Mike goes to Will's house after school to check on him. He reveals to Joyce that he knows about the shadow monster, and she lets him inside to see if maybe he can offer Will much-needed moral support. Dustin arrives home to check on Dart, but we see Dart has escaped his cage. He is horrified as he watches the once small Dart now devouring his cat and looking remarkably like a demogorgon. He realizes he made a mistake keeping him. Hopper arrives at the fields and grabs a shovel to begin digging into the ground, looking for a sign of the vines Will drew. He digs into the late afternoon and hits a slimy section that suddenly collapses. He realizes he's creating an opening into the ground. Hopper decides to descend into it, and that's when we see that massive tunnel stretching miles have been formed under the earth, a real indicator that major trouble is to come. Chapter 5. Dig Dug. Will has drawn more to the point that the whole house is covered in drawings. Will confides in Mike about the development and how the monster is now at the forefront of Will's psyche. Mike tries to spin it into a good thing by telling him maybe now he can spy on the monster and figure out what it wants and how to stop him. Will is worried that the monster will spy back. Will wakes up the next morning having had a dream of Hopper. He thinks Hopper is in trouble and going to die. Hopper continues to explore the tunnels, seeing how extensive they are. After getting sprayed with toxic fumes, he passes out. He wakes up later, weak and in pain, with the tunnel opening having been closed. He still tries to make his way through the tunnels, trying to find an escape. He lights a fire with a homemade torch to try to break himself out of the tunnels, but is unsuccessful. Roots begin to encircle his legs and body, pinning him to the ground, and begin slowly suffocating him. Time is running out. Nancy and Jonathan continue traveling out of town, getting a motel room for the night. They have a heart-to-heart conversation, alluding to the potential of shared feelings, but they can't quite communicate right yet. In the morning, they drive to Murray's house. They want to give him the tape they recorded from the lab and use it to destroy the lab's reputation and reveal the truth. Murray believes them, but he knows no one else will believe the full truth. They devise a plan to simplify the truth and water it down. Say that the lab released dangerous toxins or had a leak, something scary but familiar. That way people believe them and the lab gets taken down without having to convince people about the larger truth of the Upside Down. Lucas wants to apologize to Max, and after getting some advice from his parents, he comes up with the perfect plan. He has the arcade manager convince Max to follow him to the employee-only room under the guise of a broken game. Max is pissed at being tricked, but Lucas insists he's going to tell her the truth of what happened last year, but warns her she could get killed if she reveals it to anyone. Max can't help but laugh, thinking his story is one big elaborate lie. After he lashes out at her for talking too loudly, Max realizes Lucas at least believes the story to be true. She demands he presents her with proof. Dustin gets his mom to leave the house and works a way to lure Dart into the tornado shelter in his backyard via slices of bologna. He suits up and narrowly avoids a fight with it. Dustin buries his cat, trying to radio call the gang so they can help him deal with Dart next, but no one is answering. He's had enough, so he goes to Mike's house. He runs into Steve, who is going to the house to see Nancy. He forcibly recruits him to help deal with Dart with the nail-covered bat Steve acquired last season. Elle decides to see her mom in person, having hitchhiked via a trucker to her house. Her presence freaks out her Aunt Becky, who tries to remain calm. Terry is still unresponsive, muttering the same phrases over and over again, even after making direct eye contact with Elle. Aunt Becky tries to explain Terry's condition and shows her the room Terry had made for her. She offers for Elle to stay with them. That's when Elle sees that the lights in the house are shorting in and out. She realizes Terry is communicating to her through her abilities. Elle uses white noise to go into her mother's memories and sees the following truths. Her mom is pregnant with her but went into labor, having to undergo a C-section. Dr. Brunner was there and took the baby from her the moment Elle was taken out. Terry heard her baby cry, hence why she doesn't believe the lie that she died. She gets a gun out of her safe sometime later and infiltrates the lab trying to find her daughter. She sees Elle with another little girl, but before she can safely take Elle out, she gets captured and undergoes electroshock torture to effectively stop her, but also trap her within her own mind. Terry is effectively reliving those events in a constant rotation, never being able to escape. Elle is rightfully horrified. Will draws a location where he saw Hopper in his dream. Bob comes over at the same time, wanting to give Will some games so he feels better. Joyce tries to get him to leave, but realizes Bob might actually be able to crack the code of the drawings and learn how to find Hopper. Joyce insists he can't ask questions, but he has so many at seeing the house in its current state. As he looks at the drawings, he realizes Will has actually drawn an elaborate map of Hawkins. They use a measuring tape to try to pinpoint where Hopper is. They all get into the car to search for him. Will directs them to the exact spot where Hopper entered the tunnel. Joyce enters the tunnel with Bob, trying to find him as government officials arrive. They successfully free Hopper and get him out as the officials begin burning the creatures, knowing that fire is its weakness. They don't realize that by doing so, they're also hurting Will, who contorts and seizes on the ground in a horrifying final frame. Chapter 6. The Spy. Will is rushed to the lab still in tremendous amounts of pain. He says he feels like he's burning and they have to sedate him in order to try to figure out what went wrong. Hopper gets sprayed off and cared for in another part of the hospital. Dr. Owens takes Hopper into the lab that has been exposed to the Upside Down. We see that the gate has now grown significantly larger, opening down into the earth. Dr. Owens confirms it has been growing and spreading, but they can't destroy it as it seems connected to Will. Dustin and Steve are headed to his house to take care of Dart. They prepare for a fight, but they realize Dart escaped the storm cellar, having molted again, and busted its way through the walls and into the ground, forming another tunnel. Dart is now on the loose. The doctors are unable to give Joyce any answers on his condition, and she lashes out. She's rightfully angry that no one can give her any explanation at all. They send lab workers to take pictures of Will's drawings to make sense of his condition. Murray, Nancy, and Jonathan make copies of the taped confession from Dr. Owens and prepare to mail them to news outlets. Murray insists they spend the night at his house as it's late. Murray can tell Jonathan and Nancy are more than friends, and he makes fun of them for not realizing it and lying to themselves. When they call it a night, neither Jonathan or Nancy can sleep, thinking over what Murray said and insisting he's wrong. Both of them finally accept the truth as they share a passionate kiss and go into the guest room, closing the door behind them. In the morning, Murray can immediately tell that they hooked up the night before and looks utterly pleased at how hard Nancy and Jonathan are acting like nothing happened. Nancy and Jonathan arrive at the Byers' house, worried at seeing all of the drawings that are on the walls and no sign of his mom or Will. Lucas the next day realizes Erica turned off his radio. He calls Dustin, who tells him to meet him and help him capture and defeat Dart. Steve and Dustin have assembled chunks of ground meat as a lure for the creatures. Lucas quickly runs to Max's house, convincing her to leave through her bedroom window so he can show her Dart and subsequently give her the proof she asked for. Dustin, Lucas, Steve, and Max meet at the vehicle junkyard to set it up as a full-blown trap for Dart. Dustin is upset Max was filled in on what's happening, but Lucas insists they need the help, and Max can do just that. Bob finally gets filled in on the events of last year. Joyce, Bob, and Mike realize Will is slowly losing his memories. He's acting weirder, becoming more connected with the monster. To confirm their suspicions, they set up a test using a small portion of the vines from the tunnels. They press a hot flame to it and realize Will feels the same pain that the creature feels. Dr. Owens theorizes he's experiencing a virus, that something is latched onto him and is hijacking the host. The infected hosts are communicating through a hive mind. The other doctors at the lab are becoming more concerned with the spread of the creatures in the tunnel. They urge Dr. Owens to let Will die in order to stop the spread. They believe Will is going to die regardless. Will turns to Mike later that day and tells him he's had another now memory and thinks he knows of a way to stop the shadow monster. Will pinpoints a section of his drawings, claiming the monster doesn't want him to see this particular spot and that it might be important in taking it down. The lab workers suit up and head to that location. Night falls and 2 battles are about to go underway. We get a short insight into Max's backstory, and it's clear she and Lucas are forming a bond. Suddenly Dart arrives, but he's not taking the bait. Steve goes outside of their hideout to get it to come closer, but another Dart-like creature appears. They are surrounded, and soon Steve is racing back to the hideout. Just when it seems Steve will have to fight off the creatures, they are suddenly called away, all heading to another location. The lab workers are in the tunnels, confused why they are there, when Dart and his siblings appear. Will finally apologizes to Joyce and Mike, saying the monster made him do it. Mike realizes the monster set a trap, using Will to get the lab workers into the tunnels to then get killed by Dart and his siblings. Mike rushes to try to warn Dr. Owens, but it's far too late. Everyone in the tunnel gets mauled to death. Will tells Joyce to leave, as they are almost here. Hopper stands in shock as the creatures climb their way up the tunnels and into the lab itself. Chapter 7. The Lost Sister. In this episode, we chronicle what Elle has been up to since the last time we saw her. As a recap, she's found her mother Terry Ives, who possesses similar abilities to Elle. Elle is shown her mother's memories of her birth, Dr. Brenner kidnapping her, and her mother's fight to get her back before enduring torture, which has caused her to relive these moments over and over again. Elle notices her mother was focused also on one other little girl that was also in the rainbow room with her. She believes her mother wants her to find that girl. Aunt Becky reveals Terry has a collection of files relating to other missing kids like Elle. She finds a newspaper article about a missing kid from London and realizes it's the same girl. She uses white noise to try to track the girl, but she's unable to get an exact location. That night, after making a breakthrough, she overhears Aunt Becky making a phone call trying to locate Hopper and Joyce for help with Elle. Elle doesn't want to go back home, so she leaves, stealing some money for a bus on the way out. She's off to find the girl. She takes the bus to Chicago, knowing this girl is located somewhere down dark alleys where the homeless and drug addicts have made their home. After some searching, she sees a building she saw in her vision and goes in. She's immediately confronted by a group of adults who are immediately suspicious of her, even more so when she pulls out the picture of the girl she now calls her sister. Callie, the girl, appears, also suspicious of Elle. Elle gains some confidence to show off her powers and explain to her how she found her. After they show off their tattoos to each other, it's confirmed. They are sisters, both having once been confined to the Rainbow Room in Dr. Brenner's experiments. Callie seems overjoyed at meeting her. Elle immediately opens up to Callie about her life with Hopper, growing to trust her. Callie believes Terry sent Elle here because she belongs there, that she can have a home here with Callie. It's clear that Callie isn't exactly a good person. We already know from the first episode that Callie and her group take part in criminal activity, though it's not immediately clear what they do. We do see Callie talk about how Elle can use her powers to benefit their missions. The next day, Callie lays their mission out. She's been targeting the former employees of the lab who worked with Dr. Brenner to kidnap and experiment on kids. She's been finding them and killing them. For some training, Callie encourages Elle to harness the anger and frustration she has felt and channel that to make her powers stronger. Elle finds a target in the list of photos and employee IDs Callie and the group have collected. It's the man responsible for turning on the electric shock torture her mother endured. She suits up and getting a leather jacket, slicked back hair makeover that I personally have always found a little cringeworthy. Elle is beginning to have some conflicts over her life with Callie. She hears Hopper over the radio apologizing to her and letting her know he isn't mad about their previous fight. When the group and Elle arrive at the target's house, that's when things take a turn for the worst. Elle seems to be following along until she sees a photo of the man's family, notably his 2 daughters. As luck would have it, those 2 daughters are in the house, having called the police. Elle is unable to kill him and further prevents Callie from killing him via a bullet to the head. Callie is furious with Elle for taking the kill away from her. They end up having to leave the man alive to escape the police. Callie tries to get Elle to understand the motives behind their missions, but goes too far, making Elle see Dr. Brenner, who antagonizes her. She wants Elle to see that killing the bad man is a way to make it all right and get justice. Elle, still not convinced, beginning to miss the friends she has made and the life she had in Hawkins with Hopper. She sees Hopper in her mind and witnesses the final events of the last episode, with Mike screaming that a trap has been set and that the town is in danger. Elle doesn't realize she is in danger. The police have found their hideout spot. Callie uses her powers to hide them in plain sight, but it's still a mad dash to the car to escape. Elle decides at that moment that she needs to go back to Hawkins, that her friends are in danger and need her help. She acknowledges that whilst her friends can't save her from her grief and hurt, she can still save them from death. Callie is left in shock watching her leave the mission and not seek the same path she's on. I wonder if Elle's decision to leave behind the want to avenge her mother and the life she could have had makes Callie wonder if she is on the right path. Elle boards the bus back to Hawkins, ready to save her friends and to go back home. Chapter 8, The Mind Flayer. Now back to Hawkins. Dart and his siblings have climbed up the tunnels into the heart of the lab and break in, devouring every human victim they can find. It is chaos and carnage in a matter of minutes. Joyce and Mike forcibly sedate Will so that the monster can't spy any longer. Hopper and Dr. Owens arrive, and everyone makes a run for it, trying to find a room to hole up in to hide just as the power goes out, effectively locking them in. We get an interesting scene giving more context to Billy and Max's home life. Billy's father is abusive both physically and verbally, which gives an explanation on why Billy is the same. Max's mother is more quiet and doesn't really stand up to her husband when he attacks his son after he blames Billy for Max running off on her own. It seems forcing Max and Billy to be siblings and refer to each other as such is causing them to resent each other and their parents even more. Dustin, Lucas, Steve, and Max are in the woods, reflecting on the attack with Dart. Lucas is mad Dustin kept Dart without realizing he's a Demogorgon, and Dustin is still mad that Max was filled in on the events of last year. As they scream at each other, Steve has to get them to focus on their mission of finding Dart and following the sounds of their howling. They realize Dart and his siblings went to the lab. and that is where they intend to head next. Dr. Owens informs the group that in order to turn the power on and unlock the front doors, someone has to go to the basement to reset the breakers, which in turn means rebooting the computer system and overriding security measures so the doors actually unlock. Bob is the only one who knows how to do this. Hopper helps him arm up and prepare for the danger ahead. We finally see Nancy and Jonathan again. They seem to have been trying to search for Mike and Will when they arrive at the lab. Steve, Dustin, Lucas, and Max arrive at the same time, hearing the creatures but not aware of the full carnage inside. They focus on opening the outer gate in order to get inside. Bob arrives in the basement and successfully resets the computer security systems. Dr. Owens uses the security cameras in their hideout to direct Bob back through the lab in the safest route possible. Hopper carries Will and leads Mike and Joyce out to safety as well. Bob has an almost run-in with the creatures, having to hide in a closet. But as he leaves, thinking he's safe, a broom drops, alerting the creatures to his presence. He makes a run for it, thinking perhaps he's escaped as he's right by the entrance. His momentary pause ends his life, as the creatures pounce on him and devour him in a devastating scene. Hopper and Joyce are forced to leave him. Nancy and Jonathan pull up to the lab entrance just in time for Hopper, Joyce, Mike, and Will to hop in the back and drive to safety. Dustin, Lucas, Steve, and Max go to Hopper's police car and hop in, driving to safety as well. We're left with one final horrifying shot of Bob being eaten before we go to our next scene. Hopper calls in military contacts to see if they can come to contain the creatures. Everyone is left in shock, and Joyce is left destroyed. Mike, though, doesn't want to stop fighting, doesn't want this to be where it ends, or to let Bob die in vain. He theorizes if they stop the shadow monster, they can stop the newly named demo dogs by default. They compare the shadow monster to the mind flayer from Dungeons & Dragons and use it as a reference for the group to theorize how to take it down. They plan to use Will's connection to the mind flayer to their advantage. They go into the shed and disguise it by hanging up tarps, cardboard, etc. all over the walls and tossing outside all of the items to make a room to interrogate Will in. They want to create a room that Will won't recognize so that the mind flayer doesn't send his army of demo dogs to their location. Will is almost fully under the mind flayer's control, not being able to speak, but he does have control of one of his hands. He's able to tap out a Morse-coded message that says "close gate." Suddenly the phone rings, which Will can hear from outside. Will immediately knows where he is, and the mind flayer begins sending a message to his army to come. They sedate Will, but it's too late. Everyone now must prepare for an ugly fight, not having enough time to escape. It seems like this could be the end, but it sounds like the demo dogs are being attacked outside by an unknown force. A dead one is even launched through Joyce's living room window to the shock of everyone. That's when the door unlocks, and Elle walks in, surprising absolutely everyone, especially Mike. It is the reunion scene we have all been waiting for. Chapter 9, The Gate. Mike and Elle have an emotional reunion, where it is then revealed that Hopper was housing her. He's angry at Hopper for lying and not saying Elle was around, but it's clear he's feeling grief over the time they lost together. The rest of the group welcome Elle back. Max tries to introduce herself and be friendly, but Elle brushes her off, still not knowing that she isn't interested in Mike. With Elle back, a new plan forms. Joyce informs her of Will's instruction to close the gate. She's willing to give it a try, and Hopper drives her there himself. In order to prevent Will from dying as she closes the gate, Joyce, Jonathan, and Nancy take a still unconscious Will to Hopper's cabin to expel the monster by burning it out of him. Steve stays with the rest of the kids at Joyce's house, effectively becoming a babysitter. We get a very interesting plot point involving Mike's mom, Karen, and Billy. Billy goes to the Wheeler house and searches for Max after his father's orders from the previous episode. Karen answers the door, and the chemistry between them is intense. Billy is very flirtatious, and it's clear Karen can't help getting flustered. This attraction, funnily enough, continues into the next season as well. Hopper and Elle have a heart-to-heart, driving to the lab where she reveals where she's been. Hopper is rightfully horrified, knowing the potential danger she was in, but Elle does say she shouldn't have left. Hopper apologizes for lying to her and behaving poorly. He tells Elle about his daughter Sarah, really opening up to her, and we see how Hopper really sees Elle as a daughter now, and how his fears from Sarah's death cause him to lash out and make him overprotective and stupid. Steve tries to convince the kids to not leave the house. They all want to go into the tunnel entrance Hopper dug to light a section on fire and lure the demo dogs away from Elle and the gate. Suddenly, Billy pulls up, having been directed to the buyer's house by Karen. Steve tries to tell him Max isn't there, but he can see her through the window. Billy first tries to attack Lucas, wanting him to stay away from Max, but Lucas fights back. Steve fights Billy, but the fight takes a turn with Billy pummeling Steve till he's unconscious. To get the fighting to stop, Max takes the sedative that was used on Will and stabs Billy with it. He grows loopy, but not unconscious. Max takes her chance to threaten him with a nail-covered bat to his groin and makes him agree to leave her and her friends alone for good. They steal Billy's car and drive to the tunnels. Nancy, Jonathan, and Joyce tie Will down to a bed in the cabin and begin heating it up, lighting up the fireplace, turning on heaters, and settling in to see how long it will take to get the monster out. Will begins to experience immense pain that is hard for Jonathan to watch, but Joyce is insistent to get it out, getting reminded of Bob's death to keep her going. The monster wants to protect itself, so it uses its strength to free one arm and begin choking Joyce. Nancy has to use a hot fire poker to get him to release her. It all becomes too much for the monster, so it violently exits Will's body, flying into the sky, never to be seen again. Will is weak, but he is back to his normal self. Hopper and Elle arrive at the lab, prepared to fight off any demo dogs they run across. They come across an injured Dr. Owens, who is shocked to see Elle. Hopper uses this opportunity to strike a deal with Dr. Owens, that he helps him, and Dr. Owen helps Elle, allowing her to have a normal life. It seems like he might have gotten through to him. They then arrive at the gate, going down the elevator lift as Elle prepares herself to use the most amount of power yet. The kids and Steve all descend into the tunnels using Will's maps to guide themselves through them. They spray the entirety of the main tunnel hub with gasoline, ready to light it. Suddenly a demo dog appears, and Dustin realizes it's Dart. He's able to give Dart a nougat chocolate as a distraction to get them to exit the tunnel. Elle begins closing the gate, causing more demo dogs to rush past the group. They are all relieved, but they know that means the dogs are coming to take Elle down and keep the gate open. Hopper takes charge of shooting the dogs as they arrive. Elle is able to use every ounce of hurt and anger to close the opening in a terrifying and magnificent show of power. All of the dogs drop dead, having been no longer connected to the hive mind. In the epilogue, the lab has officially been closed down for a month, thanks to the tapes released by Nancy, Jonathan, and Murray. Barb's parents hold a funeral for her, finally putting her to rest. Hopper meets with Dr. Owens at a restaurant. He gives Hopper official documents for Elle, like a birth certificate. He does him a favor by giving Elle Hopper's last name. Tonight is the snowball at the middle school. All of the kids are excited. No one more so than Dustin, who does his hair extra special with Steve's help. Lucas and Max dance together, and Will gets asked by a random girl if he wants to dance with her. That just leaves Dustin and Mike. Mike doesn't seem interested in the dance at all, but Dustin has enough confidence to try to ask several different girls to dance, but it's clear he's not over his crush on Max. After getting brutally rejected multiple times, he's left crying on the gym bleachers. Nancy sees this and decides to ask him to dance, which is perhaps the sweetest moment in this season. Mike is left alone, but is shocked seeing Elle walking in, taking his breath away. They dance the night away, and everything seems perfect. Just before the credits roll, we are taken back into the Upside Down. The Mind Flayer is there, staring ominously over the middle school like it knows the kids are there. It's clear there is still more to come.
Thank you so much for watching Season 2 recap of Stranger Things with us. Please stay tuned for Season 5 and see you in the next one. Bye!
Thank you so much for watching this episode.
You can follow us on all social media as NCOT the Podcast, and additionally, you can find us on YouTube and TikTok as That Film Couple for vlogs and extra content. You can also follow me on Instagram as sebi.mp4 and on Twitch as sebasparra1k.
And you can follow me at caitlin.mp4 on Instagram as well.
My name is Sebastian.
And my name is Caitlin.
And this is
And cut!